All right, let's picture this. You're inside a major bank, and a digital dashboard is just flashing red everywhere. Markets are tanking, billions are on the line. But here's the thing, this isn't real. Not yet anyway. It's a simulation, a super high-stakes drill running entirely inside a massive database. And it's right here, in this digital world, that banks use data to stare right into the abyss and, figure out a way back.
So, the first thing the system does is ask a really terrifying question. What happens if the cost of money just explodes with no warning? The models immediately start turning through terabytes of data, calculating every possible consequence.
And then boom, another scenario hits. This time, it's a wave of pure panic, a digital bank run. What does the bank's stability even look like when its main source of funding, all those customer deposits, just vanishes in a couple of hours?
And for the final blow, what if the whole system just locks up? Nobody's lending, nobody can borrow. The entire financial world grinds to a dead stop. Look, these are not just some random hypotheticals. They are the exact nightmare scenarios that banks absolutely have to be ready for.
This whole process of constantly asking what if, it's got a name. And really, it's the banking world's version of a fire drill. Or maybe a flight simulator for a pilot. It's all about practicing for the absolute worst-case scenario before it has a chance to become reality. Officially, it's called liquidity stress testing. And believe me, this is no academic exercise. It's a super rigorous, data-heavy simulation designed to answer one crucial question. Does this bank have enough cash and stuff it can sell, like right now, to survive a massive crisis all on its own? So the test basically looks at two completely different realities. On one side, you've got your baseline. That's just business as usual, money flowing in and out, all very predictable. But on the other side, you've got the stress scenario, a sudden, chaotic stampede for the exits. And the whole point is to measure the gap between that stability and total chaos. And the kinds of conditions they're simulating here are, well, they're pretty intense. We're talking about huge, sudden withdrawals, being forced to sell your best assets into a market that's already crashing, having your most important credit lines just cut off, and even having to deal with the fallout from another bank going under. It's the whole shebang.
So you might be asking, why all this prep work? Well, the answer really lies in our recent history. The 2008 global financial crisis showed everyone just how shockingly unprepared a lot of big institutions were. So, in response, regulators came in with laws like the Dodd-Frank Act and basically made these stress tests mandatory. They went from being a pretty good idea to a global requirement almost overnight.
Okay, so running the test is great for finding all the weak spots, the potential points of failure. But spotting a problem, that's really only half the battle. What happens next? Well, that's where you turn all those scary results into an actual plan.
And this brings us to probably the single most important question in this whole thing. A failed test means you found a vulnerability, a real crack in the armor. So now what? You don't just cross your fingers and hope for the best. No, you have a pre-written playbook ready to go.
And that playbook is called the Contingency Funding Plan, or the CFP. The best way to think about it is like one of those emergency binders behind a pane of glass that says break in case of emergency. It's a pre-approved step-by-step guide for exactly what to do, who to call, and what to sell the second a real crisis starts to unfold. And if you were to open that playbook, you'd find very specific, concrete actions. It lays out exactly how to tap into backup funding right away, which assets you should sell first, how to get emergency funds from the central bank, and, this is so crucial, how to communicate with everyone, from regulators to investors to the public, to keep the panic from spreading.
And this brings us right back to where we started. This whole system, from that first what-if test all the way to the final emergency plan, is built on a foundation of data. It's all about using information to turn that feeling of raw fear into a structured, logical response.
Maybe the best way to really get this is with a simple but really powerful idea. Stress testing isn't just about math. It's about storytelling. And that one thought right there kind of reveals the true soul of this whole exercise.
Because the scenarios a bank decides to test for and the plans it makes, well, that tells you a story. It's a story about what that institution fears most, where it thinks its weaknesses are, and maybe even what its blind spots might be. It reveals how they plan to think clearly when everyone else is, understandably, panicking.
And the main character of that story? It's the data. Every single decision, from modeling that initial shock to actually triggering the contingency plan, it's all guided by these massive, incredibly complex databases that are tracking every asset, every dollar, and every risk.
So you see, there's this really essential relationship at the heart of the whole system. The stress test is like the diagnostic tool. Its whole job is to find the cracks. And the contingency plan, that's the fix, designed specifically to fill those cracks before the whole thing can fall apart.
And that is the ultimate goal. To take something as chaotic and unpredictable as a financial panic and impose some kind of order on it. To use data and a little bit of foresight to create a calm, structured plan of action that's just sitting there ready to go at a moment's notice.
I mean, it is an incredibly sophisticated system of preparation. It's amazing. But it does leave us with one last kind of nagging question. No matter how detailed the model is or how perfectly written the playbook is, can a simulation, a crisis in a computer, ever truly prepare us for the wild, unpredictable nature of human fear in a real crisis?